On the AU's radar in Addis Ababa this weekend was the Israel-Hamas war. The International Court of Justice has begun historic hearings into the legality of Israel's 57-year occupation of lands sought for a Palestinian state. Over the course of 6 days, 52 states and 3 organizations, including the Arab League, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, and the African Union, will present arguments related to Israel's open-ended control over the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem. Israel says it doesn't recognize the legitimacy of the hearings and won't attend. Now, this case is separate from South Africa's genocide case at The Hague and predates Israel's bombardment of Gaza in response to the October 7th Hamas attacks. And now here to tell us more is VOA correspondent Ignatius Annor. He joins me here in studio. Ignatius, it has been a minute, and a warm welcome back to Straight Talk Africa. Great to have you. I want to get right into it. This is now the 3rd case involving Israel at the International Court of Justice. Please walk us through what happened last week when South Africa approached the court about Israel's planned Rafah ground offensive.
Well, thank you, Haydé, for having me. It's always great to be with you, and thanks. It's a great pleasure to be here. So on the 12th of February, South Africa, for the second time, went to the International Court of Justice, or the World Court, as it's called globally. And this time, the request was very simple. The country was asking for additional measures that will stop Israel from its impending ground invasion of the southern city of Rafah in Gaza. Currently, Gaza has roughly about 1.5 Palestinians who have already been displaced since Israel launched its attack, its counterattack, following the Palestinian attack on October the 7th of last year. South Africa is now saying that we have gone beyond saying that we're accusing Israel of genocide, but saying it is punishing the people of Gaza. And so we're asking the World Court to give additional measures. What the court then said, 4 days after South Africa sent the request, the 15 justices issued a statement, and they said that we had already issued an interim measure pending the core of the case that South Africa has sent. Remember, that was for the court to stop the military intervention that Israel is undertaking. It says that we had already issued preliminary measures asking Israel to ensure that they protect all Palestinians in Gaza and also make sure that they open up the country for humanitarian aid and fuel to get into Gaza. So essentially, the World Court declined the request that South Africa brought just because they had issued the first response or the ruling that says that we expect Israel to protect these people and avoid genocidal acts in Gaza.
And that Rafah offensive you were talking about, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying that ground offensive will begin by Ramadan, which is around March 10th or 11th, if Israeli hostages held by Hamas and other groups are not released. But now, Ignatius, these current hearings about Israel are about Israel's control over the West Bank, Gaza, East Jerusalem. What do the 52 states and the 3 organizations, including the AU and including South Africa, what do they want the court to do here with these hearings currently taking place?
On Tuesday, which was yesterday, we heard from the South African ambassador resident in Netherlands, and he had said, and I quote him correctly, that Israel's occupation of the 3 areas that you've mentioned, East Jerusalem, the Gaza Strip, and then the West Bank, is fundamentally illegal. What they are asking the World Court to do is to rule that the occupation is illegal and that Israel basically hands off those territories without any condition. When you hear from the South African representatives, what they said was, quote unquote, that they not only hear, see, and feel the pain of the Palestinian people, because South Africa as a country had experienced apartheid between 1948 and 1994. It is for that reason they are saying that we think that we're responsible. We want to hold the international community to account and also make sure that the people of Gaza are protected by ensuring that there is a ruling that binds Israel to basically literally hands off those territories.
Now, Ignatius, there's been a lot of activity now at the ICJ ICJ, but in real terms, the last time with the January 26th ruling, the court stopped short of ordering a ceasefire. So the South Africans celebrated that, what they saw as a victory, at least on moral terms, on January 26th. But what has it really changed for ordinary people in their daily lives living in Gaza?
That's a great question, Haydé. So if you look at the fact that South Africa decided to hold Israel to account on what they see to be an illegality and repression or discrimination against the Palestinians, what they are saying here is that we think that the suffering of these people would increase if there is no concrete measures or people do not hold Israel to account. Now, as we speak now, as I said early on, 1.4 million Palestinians have left other parts of Gaza and are literally just, being refugee in the south of the country, which is Rafah, for example. If South Africa had not taken this case to the World Court, what analysts have even told me, for example, is that what we'll be seeing will be much more severe than what we have seen. So essentially, it looks like South Africa's request to the court is making some gains. People are not, dealing with the sort of things they would have dealt with had there not been a ruling from the World Court.
Even so, at the same time, you're seeing there is a little bit of a tussle inside the United States thinking on how far to support Israel on this. The Israelis, of course, Israeli Prime Minister especially, rubbishing the court's rulings and, of course, rejecting accusations of apartheid here. But we've heard references of the plight of Palestinians at the recent AU summit, especially during speeches. It's a tall order, of course, to expect all 55 countries in the African Union to speak with one voice all the time on every topic. But where do African countries more or less stand on the Israel-Hamas war? I mean, we haven't really seen other countries come out to the same extent that South Africa has.
Haydé, I would answer this question by giving you an example of what happened 2 years ago when Russia invaded Ukraine. What we saw from the African Union and indeed the 54-member bloc is that of full support for Russia, for example. And we saw even, at the General Assembly when the votes were held, most either African states, abstained from the vote or voted against what, the United States, for example, was trying to achieve by saying that Russia doesn't have the right to invade Ukraine. We haven't seen that when it comes to the issue of Israel and then Gaza, for example. What we have seen is locals, indigenous African people taking to their social media, even protesting in countries like Tunisia, in countries like Algeria, in Ghana, in Kenya. We've seen local people say that free Palestine, but we also have not heard them categorically condemn the assault of the Palestinian militant group Hamas on southern Israel on October the 7th. When the African Union summit happened over the weekend, Musa Faki Mahamat indeed commended South Africa and says that the African Union was fully in support of the processes that South Africa is taking at the International Court of Justice. So it's a double-edged sword where the people are saying they're free Palestine, but we have the African Union as a bloc of the region saying that we support exactly what Pretoria is doing at the World Court.
And things become tricky when you've got some wars and conflicts on your own doorstep to deal with as well. Ignatius, Annor.
But let me just quickly say that Israel, for example, had said, last year they submitted a report in response to the accusations made by South Africa claiming that they, are committing genocidal acts in Gaza. And they have said that they are not doing that and that they have respected international laws and would not sit back for Hamas to attack them, that they have the right to protect themselves.
Very interesting situation indeed. Ignatius, Annor, always a pleasure to have you. Thank you for helping us understand this and walking us through it all. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.